Crossovers are big business these days, but as we move into the cities, they do seem to be getting smaller.
And that's because a lot of them, they're taking up the space that station wagons used to be in. And we've got 3 of them here that we're going to do head-to-head. We have the Volkswagen Taos, we have the Kia Seltos, and we have the Toyota Corolla Cross, all of them 2022 models. Right now we'll talk about the price. Seltos comes in the cheapest at $33,245 as tested. Next up we have the Corolla, $33,990, and in the middle we have the Taos at $38,195. Now price is not everything. We're going to be looking across the board at how these things drive, what their engines are like, what it's like to be inside them, what it's like with cargo.
So beyond the price, these all have a lot in common. They're all compact crossovers, they're all top-of-the-line trims, they're all all-wheel drive, and they're all new for 2022.
So we got a lot of driving to do and a lot of comparison to do, so let's get in these cars and let's see what they give us.
So let's start with the Corolla Cross.
So here we are in the Toyota Corolla Cross, which is the least expensive and the most fuel efficient of the 3. So Elliot, give me some numbers.
So this Corolla Cross is the top trim, coming at $33,990. It gets 7.8 liters, run through a 2-liter engine and a CVT transmission.
And that, I think, is where I have a little bit of difficulty with this car. That CVT, a lot of them are so smooth and so nice, and they feel like conventional transmissions. And this one's going back to when they first came out. It's a little rubber bandy, you gotta wait for it to catch up. So because we don't have the turbo, we're looking at an engine that isn't as powerful necessarily as some of the others. What are our numbers?
The Corolla Cross comes in with 150 foot-pounds of torque, compared to 184 in the Taos and 195 in the Seltos. That makes a really big difference when you're pulling off the line, or especially if you're trying to merge into highway traffic.
It does, and it's a noisy combination. Now, as we've often said, these things are not race cars. So we understand, you're going to the grocery store, you're going to work, you're doing whatever. It's more than enough engine.
The Corolla Cross, though, it does seem to be very well catered to people who simply need a car with a bit more room. Despite having the same footprint as the other 2, it's not actually necessarily as roomy. It's got great front headroom, but the rear headroom and especially the rear leg room are quite limited. Cargo in the Corolla Cross is the least with the seats up, but just barely, 750 liters to the Seltos 752 or 790 in the Taos.
Now, you and I have often said we like the simplicity of a non-turbo engine, especially if you're keeping the vehicle for a long time. And all 3 of them across the board have a 5-year, 100,000 kilometer powertrain warranty. As far as comprehensive goes, this one has the lowest at 360. The Taos is 480, and the Seltos, it carries right through 5100. But are we going to really need to fix this engine and transmission?
We like to think, or at least hope not. This is a very well-known powertrain coming out of the Toyota Prius. In this case, it doesn't have that hybrid technology, but it still has a very well-established track record.
And as far as driving goes, the steering and the handling, I have to put this one 3rd. The steering is vague, there's not a lot of feel to it, it's not a lively vehicle. Another thing that we've talked about is the infotainment system, and of the 3, this one seems the oldest and the most dated.
It does. It's a slow system, it has very limited functionality, and it requires on cell phone apps, which just really should not be acceptable.
Well, it's the only one of the 3 that doesn't have built-in navigation. And I understand that a lot of people use their phones for navigation, but a lot of people don't. And when we're starting to get up into this range, but then again, it's the least expensive of the 3. So there are going to be compromises. On the other hand, it's also the only one with a power liftgate.
That is true. And overall, I must say, the cabin here is not exciting, but it feels classically Toyota in that it's solid. I have no doubts about its longevity.
I agree with you there, and it's well designed. Now, one thing I will say, we talked about noise levels, and the Taos is noisy. This vehicle is noisy too. And the one thing I really notice is when I'm going over expansion joints here, the back end booms. It really echoes through the cargo compartment. And okay, not the end of the world, but if you're on a road like this all day long, it gets a little tiresome. Can you live with that? It's going to depend on each person. And I think, you know, Toyota has that reputation for reliability, and that's going to take the Corolla Cross a long way. The only thing I'm wondering, as we mentioned, is it going to take away from the RAV4? Are people going to go a little bit higher to get the RAV4? Good question. It's something that when you're in the Toyota showroom, you're going to have to look at both of them. Okay, so here we are in the Volkswagen Taos, and it is the priciest of the three as tested, $38,195. It's got a 1.5 liter turbo 4-cylinder. It makes 158 horsepower and 184 foot-pounds of torque. It's got a 7-speed direct shift gearbox, and that's an automatic that shifts faster than a conventional automatic. What it does is it sets up, as soon as you're in a gear, it sets up for the next one. So you get these smoother, faster shifts. As far as fuel goes, it's in the middle for published fuel. As far as headroom goes, it's the tightest of the three. It has the most in the rear, and it's last for front room, leg room, and it's second for rear. So you're behind the wheel this time. Tell me what it's all about.
I think this, personally, to be the most pleasant of the three to drive around in. So definitely, I do agree, there is some shuddering on deceleration. It's unfortunate, too, that acceleration isn't always perfect in this either. This has one of the strangest throttles I've come across in a modern vehicle. There's a slight hesitation when you start onto the pedal, and then it lurches forward. In city traffic, it can be a little bit jarring. Out here on country roads, it's fine.
You're absolutely right. I noticed that as well. The throttle response is a little bit odd, but I have to say, I do love driving this vehicle. It is so nimble. The steering is so nice and tight. I really do like that. One thing about the Volkswagen, when you get in the seats, they're not cushy. They're very hard, and that turns off a lot of people. But one thing I've noticed with the European auto manufacturers, and Volkswagen of course being one of them, is the seats are hard, but they're supportive. So when you're in them initially, you say, oh, that's not so good. But when you're in this car for 2-3 hours, you get out and your spine is supported. Everything feels good. And one thing I do like is heated seats with 3 settings, which is becoming far more common these days. And I like the interior. It's handsomely styled. We did notice there's a couple of things there where the quality could be just a little bit better, but overall, I kind of like it. And I like the fact that we have real buttons, real dials for things.
It's a handsome package. I think it really holds a lot of the things that we miss in a lot of other vehicles. Yes, these hard buttons, fantastic. The infotainment is okay. I'd say between the three, it falls pretty much dead in the middle.
It has a very good stereo. Now, 2 of our vehicles have premium stereos, and this is one of them. Overall, there's an awful lot to like in this vehicle, and it comes down to how do we compare them to the other 2? That's the big question. As with any vehicle, there's stuff in it that could be better, but there's an awful lot of stuff in this that's very good. So, do you think we should try the next one?
I think we shall.
Then let's do it. It is the top trim, but it also happens to be the least expensive of the 3 at $33,245. But for that, you get heated and ventilated seats, and you get a heated rear seat in addition to the heated steering wheel. So you get quite a bit for it. We've got a 1.6 liter turbo engine, making 175 horsepower and 195 foot-pounds of torque, and it's mated to a 7-speed direct shift gearbox. So what's it like behind the wheel?
Of the 3, it is the most responsive, although I really, really am still complaining about the noise of this powertrain. Steering is great, braking is tight, but I just can't get over that engine noise. It's just rattly and unpleasant, and I do not like it.
See, I can live with it. And again, this is the whole reason why people have to really test drive these things. I love the way that it handles. I love the way that it steers. It's the most responsive of the three. I like the transmission. Even though it has the same style transmission as in the Volkswagen, I find this one's a lot smoother. One thing I will say about this car is that for all the features it's got, and it's even got a head-up display and sunroof, it has single-zone automatic climate control. And for me, anything over 30,000, it's got to be dual zone. I mean, that's only right, because I travel with my husband. He doesn't seem to think that my idea of warm is his idea of warm, and I like to have that dual zone. And the other two have it, so it's obviously doable, but again, it is the least expensive of the three, so I guess you have to give something up.
Though they aren't as comfortable, I will say these definitely are the most exciting seats to look at. It's a nicely perforated vinyl. The materials throughout have been well considered. They've got a nice soft touch panel on the dash. They've got this neat mood lighting that can beat along to your music if you're so inclined. It's a little bit gimmicky, but it works. As much as I'm not a fan of having to access things through touchscreens, I'm content using this system.
Well, and also it has buttons for all of the menus when you want to bring them up in the system. We have buttons and dials for the climate control, only one dial because it's single, but you can work almost everything with a button. And one of the buttons, and it's unique among the three, is that you can lock the all-wheel drive. And that's only at low speeds. If you go over a certain speed, and I think it's something like 30 or 40 kilometers an hour, it will come out of that.
Following on that nice interior, I think this all around feels the most modern of the three. And we've spoken to the quality of the driving experience, but I'd also like to note that the technological experience is also very good. The Seltos uses Hyundai Kia's excellent driver assistance suite. It's definitely the strongest of the three. Hyundai Kia's system is fabulous.
All three of them are good. It's just, you're right. I think this one is the smoothest and the most intuitive of all of them.
As great as the driving experience is, I will say that one of my big gripes here in the Seltos is the over-the-shoulder rear visibility. It's got very small rear quarter windows, which is to be expected in modern vehicles and especially crossovers. Having said that, there is far better visibility in the Taos and even in the Corolla Cross.
It is one of those things where it looks great on the outside. It looks far more stylish than the other two do, but when you're doing that shoulder check, that back window is just a little bit too small.
It affords a very interesting character line back there with that chrome trim, but that's as far as it goes.
Well, it's form over function, and when you're driving, you want function over form. You know, overall, the big deal with Kia and its sister company Hyundai has always been about giving you an awful lot for the least amount of money. And in this segment, that is a very important thing because people like stuff. And the Seltos gives you a lot of it. You have the heated plus the ventilated seats. You have the heated rear seats, the heated steering wheel, which they all have, of course, but the head-up display. And you can show this to your friends and say, look at all this has, and it was the least expensive. You know, you're only a touch over $33,000. Okay, I don't have that much money in my pocket right now either, but in the marketplace, that's not a bad price for a fully loaded vehicle like this. So the only things it doesn't have when you compare it to the other ones, the Corolla Cross has a power lift gate, which the other two do not have. And it has the single zone climate control, whereas the other two are dual. So for all the other features, I think this one has to be the best equipped of the bunch overall.
It does seem to be the winner for value for money.
I can't argue with that. So I think what we're going to have to do is look at all three of them and do our comparisons, and we're going to have to pick a winner.
For both of us, it is the Seltos. It's the most powerful, it feels the nicest on the road, and really does feel the best put together. It also feels the most modern of the three, although the other two do have some very strong advantages.
And that's why we had a little bit of trouble deciding who was going to be number 2 and who was going to be number 3. With the Corolla Cross, okay, I was not that keen on its transmission, but then we also detected some things with the Taos as well. The Corolla Cross isn't all that fast, but then we're looking at an audience that may not be racers. They're just going to the grocery store or they're going to work. I like the way the Taos looks. I think it's the best looking of the three, but of course styling isn't everything. I don't think the Corolla Cross drives as well. It's a little vague and as you said, it's kind of soapy feeling, but you get the most front leg room, you get the most headroom, and you get a lot of cargo space. So we're looking at advantages to both. And I think what really made the difference was the price, where the Corolla Cross came in as tested as $33,990, whereas the Taos is $4,200 more.
I agree. The Taos has a lot going for it, but for $4,200 more, it is a bit of a tough sell. It certainly feels the most mature package of the three and has some great stuff like those dynamic headlamps. The Corolla Cross is a new product, but it is a known quantity with a proven drivetrain and the best fuel economy that we have of all of these three.
So here we have, of these three, our winner, the Kia Seltos. And for Driving.ca, I'm Jill McIntosh.
And I'm Elliot Alder.
And for more news and reviews, be sure to visit us on Instagram and Twitter.